Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast presented by Spartan Forge. On today's episode, I am joined by Tony Ostheimer, Hannah Summers, and Cade Maestas, aka the Maven crew at the Great American Outdoor Show. We had a fun conversation around the cabin table about the bed bug infestation in our AirBNB, Wyoming Whitetail hunting opportunities, tournament archery, Maven Optics growth, everything about the Great American Outdoor Show, and much more. For this week's Mountain Buck Monday story of the week comes from Arlo Legacy out of New York. So Arlo wrote in and said, first off, I'm a late onset hunter. Took my first deer at age 33, started hunting archery the next season, and it took 2 years to get my first deer with a bow on private land. Through listening to several core podcasts out there, I started to fill my mind with knowledge necessary to put all the pieces together to harvest a public land buck. I got pictures of this 9-point on the 13th of November 2020 and thought he was just passing through, chasing tail during the rut. I scouted the area pretty well the next spring and found tons of great sign, an old clear cut along with skidder trails and good topography all around, some secluded bedding all downhill. I didn't know I was already in my buck's bedroom, but I figured a good deer had to be living close. The first cold front of October was on its way, and so I hit the ground to check for some early season sign. I didn't really see the spot's potential. I got out well before first light on that Sunday morning, October the 17th. I had a good west wind away from the bedding area, and I set my saddle up high in an oak 20 yards off of one of the old skidder trails. Around 8 a.m., 10 turkeys moved through, so I knew I had a good spot. Around 9 a.m., I had spotted a button buck and just filmed him. Moments later, a nice 8 came through, and I fumbled my chance to get a chance at him, getting my bow hung up on my tether. I thought I was watching my early season buck walk out of my life. A couple minutes later, I looked north and just see tines headed towards me in the tall brush. I was ready as he was following the same trail as the other two deer came in on. He passed behind a tree, giving me a chance to draw. I stopped him at 21 yards, perfect broadside, and dumped a Magnus Stinger 4-blade through him. A little high and a little back, he made it 40 yards, and I heard him pile up. I literally sat in my saddle shaking for 45 minutes before I could even climb down. Thanks, Beau, for the knowledge and the inspiration to get off the beaten path and go find these deer. That's such a sweet story there, Arlo, and just hearing about, the effort you're putting in, trying to learn to deer hunt, later in life than a lot of people have, and just getting out there and doing it and getting it done. It's pretty awesome. Anyone who wants to see this beautiful 9-point, you can go check it out over on the East Meets West Hunt Instagram page or East Meets West Outdoors on Facebook. You can check that out, and feel free to send in your Mountain Buck Monday story to Beau at eastmeetswesthunt.com. All right, so in other news, the only thing I really have to update here is I got out scouting over the weekend, which it's been quite a while. The snow's been really deep and icy and everything, but some warm weather came in, and I got out and picked up first shed of the year. It was just a little 4 on one side. Found it in a spring seep coming out of this old clear cut, and there was kind of like a swamp around the area. I was checking the swamp where I've found sheds during rough winters in the past, and there's still a decent amount of snow though, so I definitely could have missed things. I need to get back in there and check it out, but had some really good sign. I pulled a camera that I had out since August or September was the last time I checked it, and had some really good deer moving in there, some early season right before dark coming out to hit this newer clear cut. The camera was on a scrape right on the edge. It was in a really sweet spot. So it was an inside corner of a newer select cut, and then you had an old 15, 20-year-old cut to the west, and then right to the south you had kind of like a hemlock kind of like a hemlock stand that went through there, and just create a bunch of edges. Now, one spot, there was a scrape there, threw camera up on it, and I had a lot of deer using that throughout all different times of the year. So my camera ended up dying on December the 20th, so I didn't get a whole lot of late season stuff there, but it was a really good setup. I was pumped to be able to get to be able to check that out and get out in the woods a little bit. Now that from here on out, my weekends are going to look a lot like just being in the woods as much as possible, learning some of my old places, getting in some new places, and just scouting. I truly believe this is the time of year when you make it happen for this upcoming fall. So anyways, I hope that everyone has a great rest of your week here. And I do want to add one thing here. So if you would, if you like the show and the podcast here, if you listen to it over on Spotify, go over and just give the podcast 5-star rating if you like it. If you don't, that's fine too. But I'd really appreciate it. That helps out with getting this out to more people. If you listen to it on Apple Podcasts, give a rating and review. Those things help out a ton. So again, thanks everyone for listening, and we will talk to you soon. All right, we're live for the 3rd annual Maven House podcast in Harrisburg.
Happy to be here.
How do you pronounce it? Podcast?
No, I pronounce it the way you pronounce it.
No one else says that. Just you.
Okay.
Because you're from Wyoming.
Actually,
I'm with a whole bunch of Wyoming people right now. So I've got Tony Ostheimer on the podcast. And Hannah Winter, Spring, Summers. And Cade Maestas, Maven. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Cade, you've been on here now 3-4 times, something like that. Last year we did one without the show. You and I just talked over the phone.
Yeah, we weren't able to make the trip out. We think we talked rifle scopes for a while.
Yeah, we did. We talked, it was Optics 101.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we did. And then Tony, I've known Tony for a couple years now, but this is his first time on the show. So,
yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Tony, you said you did a podcast before, haven't you? A couple of them?
Nope, this is going to be pretty fresh for me. I've talked to one outfitter once for a podcast over in Africa, but that was it.
Okay. And Hannah, have you been on a podcast before?
A few of them, yeah.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah.
So you're
not
a
gonna say
veteran.
I'm good at them, no, but I've been on them.
Yeah, I'm very outnumbered here, being from Pennsylvania with a bunch of Wyoming people on here, but yeah, should be.
We
should
decided
be pretty
to bring
good.
backup this year.
Yeah, I know. I'm very outnumbered, and we just got back to the house after well, you guys have been here for 8 days now.
So the 3 of us came in on Monday. Alan, who you might hear banging around in the background, wiping everything down with Lysol, he came in. He drove out here, so he ended up actually getting caught in that big storm that blew through before the show. It took them, I think last Thursday, they got 183 miles in almost 7 hours driving across Ohio. So they had a long haul out here, and then he's staying the duration, and he gets the privilege of driving home too. So he definitely got the short stick, but we just got here Tuesday, or started the show Tuesday. But that's plenty long at this show. While it's one of our best shows of the year and we get to talk to a lot of good people, it's freaking long. It's a suck for sure.
Yeah. The Great American Outdoor Show. It's just, there's 250,000 people that come through the doors, I think is what they estimate.
Yeah,
or
something like that.
something crazy like
With
that.
a total of about 5 questions between all 250,000.
Yeah,
a lot of the same answer day after day.
Yeah, and it's funny because Hannah, you joked about it. You're like, it's not the people that are asking the question. They're not asking bad questions. Just when you answer the same ones over and over again, it's like
You get to the end of it and you're like, okay, don't be a jerk. It's their first time asking this question. It just happens to be the 500th time I've heard that question, but it's their first time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. And it was only my first day here, but I can imagine how tired you guys were. Tony and I were up late last night just chatting on the couch, spreading bed bugs around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when Cade mentioned about Alan wiping everything down with Lysol, and we came into a bed bug situation in the Airbnb, so we're just trying to trying to figure out how to navigate it.
Yeah, since we're all heading back to our respective cottages tomorrow, I think of all the things I expected to take home from Harrisburg, bed bugs was not one of them. I usually leave here with a good dose of Harrisburg flu from breathing in all the fry grease in the gun haul. I was hoping to take back a couple of cases of ammunition, but they were not to be found. But bed bug seems like the gift that keeps on giving. So.
Yeah. I mean, this is my first time I've been invited to Great American Outdoor Show. And I was like, okay, COVID's a possibility, like some type of cold's a possibility. Did not put bed bugs on that list, and that's what I'm going home with.
You just kind of brought up that all of us have been here before and had 0 bed bug incidents.
And so I'm the one who brought it?
You've showed up, and I think you just had it for so long you haven't had any effects. Poor Tony over here, he's bit up like head to toe, covered in them, and we thought there were spider bites at first, which put me in a bad spot. I woke up like blacked out twice, like looking around thinking there's spiders all over me, and I don't know.
I guess Hannah's been smuggling the bugs around. I wasn't sleeping with a spider stick, so wasn't prepared.
Yeah,
but
you didn't even have the
she didn't even get bit at all, so they're...
Yeah, I have no bites on me, so I'm not
That's
sure.
how I know she brought them.
I don't think I can take the blame for the bed bugs. I have not a single bite.
Yeah.
All of you guys have bites.
No, I don't have any bites.
Your head right there. I've seen it myself.
No, I think that's acne. I don't think it's spider bites or bed bugs or whatever.
It's stress blemishes from having to talk to us tonight.
Yeah, that's probably more likely.
Yeah, I can't say that. Every time I come to Harrisburg, I'm like, you go in and you're just going to be beat down by the end of it. You drive home and you're just questioning your life decisions, everything that's going on, because it's just a constant beat down into Maven booth all day long.
And Saturdays are particularly long. Most of the time it's 10 to 7. But the 9 to 7 on Saturday, it's only an extra hour. But good God, it is a long hour that tees it off. By the time 7 o'clock rolls around at night, it is time to shut off the brain, crack open a frosty beverage, and get to it.
Yeah, and, we're not really shutting off the brains because we had to come back and record a podcast, so... But I'm sure everyone's, you were excited about it, Cade. I know it. You kept bringing it up all day.
I did. What are we talking about tonight, Beau? Where's the script?
So,
what do you want me to plug this time?
Yeah. So I kind of want to start it off by just, Tony, give a little background on yourself and what you like to do out there in Wyoming, because you kill a lot of shit and you like to hunt a lot. You seem to travel a lot to hunt, and I always enjoy hearing your stories and seeing your Snapchats out there in the West.
Well, I grew up hunting and fishing with my dad as my mentor. Moved to Wyoming when I was 15. My dad took a job out there as a teacher, so graduated from high school out in rural Wyoming, out in the Sheridan area, and then didn't really go too far when I went to college, just a few hours away. Didn't get to do too much hunting or fishing or anything like that through college, just because I played football and I didn't have any time anymore for any hunting seasons. But after football wrapped up and I finished everything like that, and I really dove back into it. Once you leave college and a really structured schedule of sports, you immediately look for something to gravitate towards and fill to, or something to put your time into. So fly fishing and hunting really took off for me after that point. Got into archery my last year of college. Decided to give that a try because I was tired of having to hunt when it was cold out, and I decided I wanted to hunt when it was nicer weather. And have just been sticking it out and learning as I go from there. I've killed a few elk with my bow, quite a few deer. Being Wyoming residents, we're pretty fortunate to be able to go an over-the-counter elk tag every year at least. We can always draw an antelope tag somewhere in the state. There's a lot of whitetail options, and you can still get a mule deer tag too. So there's plenty of in-state opportunities just in the fall.
So you're saying like everyone should move to Wyoming? Is that what you're?
No, see, there's just not enough room for everybody, and the state's about full.
Super populated, like expensive rent. Basically another New York. Don't want to move there.
Yeah, definitely.
It is cold though, and the nearest thing is 2 hours away. That's just the general travel rule in Wyoming. Is if you go somewhere, it's 2 hours.
Yeah, that is interesting. It's funny, like when first time I had any time in Wyoming, it was after my first hunting trip to Colorado, and we were heading home. We were going up to Interstate 80, and we went to Cheyenne and spent a night there. And I was like, wait, this is the state's capital? It's like a kind of a mid-sized town, you know?
Biggest town in Wyoming. What are you talking about? 60,000 people.
We put the capital and I-80 in one of the least pleasant parts of the state so that whenever people are traveling through, they go, ooh, this is terrible. I don't want to live here. And we kind of keep the gems for ourselves.
Yeah, I just remember extremely windy, and and I remember Sundays, everything shut down. There's like nothing going on in town. Is that right? Or did we just hit like an odd...
Are you sure you weren't in Utah?
No, I'm pretty sure.
All right, just checking.
I'm pretty sure I was in Cheyenne.
We've got some stuff going on Sundays.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Walmart and such.
Walmart. Yeah. And Tony, I always think it's funny whenever you and I are kind of Snapchatting back and forth. I'll be whitetail hunting in Pennsylvania and kind of the big woods, and then you send me this kind of like wide open landscape that you're whitetail hunting in, and it's quite a bit different. But you seem to do a decent amount of whitetail hunting as well.
So Wyoming has the Sheridan area, just in particular, has an overabundance of whitetails. The projections for game and fish and just their overall populations are well beyond the management level. So it's a pretty fun thing to go do and hunt. The tag is generally pretty easy to draw as a resident. And yeah, it's hunting a lot of river bottoms, hunting a lot of edge of ag fields, stuff like that. Those whitetails seem to run those river bottoms, and there's pretty common. We can do a stand sit and say anywhere between 200 and 300 deer in a set in an evening.
Oh, that's insane. I haven't seen 200 or 300 deer in my life. Yeah, that's insane. And so like you said, like kind of like the river bottoms and the ag edges. Is river bottom just because that's like one of the only places that has trees? Is that, or what's the whole deal about river bottoms?
Yeah, so the river bottoms seem to have more of the deciduous trees. There's a lot more cover for those whitetails, as well as most of the agriculture in Wyoming is based off those rivers. Most have either an irrigation permit or they have a water rights permit they can pull from one of the rivers. So most of the ag fields are located close to these river bottoms, just to the access and the ease of transporting that water to the field. So
okay,
the whitetails seem to stick to close to those river bottoms mostly, and just with how many there are versus how far they are over the goals, the Game and Fish is liberal with issuing and allocating those tags because they're concerned about something like a blue tongue or an EHD coming through and taking out large amounts of the deer. And it is starting to happen because we're getting too many deer, too many whitetails, that is. The mule deer is another conversation. They're in decline right now, but the whitetails are blowing up. So they're looking to try to get more and more of those whitetails pulled before one of those, I guess, semi-natural disasters happens when 90% of the whitetail will die off from something that was endemic.
Interesting. And like, so when you go like into these areas, do you spend much time as far as scouting or anything, or do you kind of just know like when you find these river bottom spots, there's going to be whitetails, or what do you kind of like? How do you look at that?
So I was really fortunate with a lot of my hunting. I grew up in that area, spending my latter years of high school and everything there. So I know a lot of people. Most of these people that I know and I talk to are generally open to the idea of archery hunting on these river bottoms and around their property. The rifle hunting is pretty well shut down everywhere, but they have no problem with the bow hunting. So I like to get out there. I try to go set stands, run some cameras, get some idea of where the deer are, what's going on, what's moving, find some pinch points, or just whatever natural trail they're doing that year. And it'll change. It'll change year to year on every piece of property and ranch, because some year the ranchers will run a fence somewhere on one side. Next year they're going to run cows to a different side and the deer will follow a different path. But that's part of the fun, is just throwing out 15 cameras, seeing what's getting hit, what's not getting hit, and then trying to make a plan from there.
Okay. So I didn't realize you did a whole lot of the camera game too.
I wouldn't say I do a lot of it or I'm any good at it. It's the shotgun approach. I'm going to put a whole bunch of cameras out and something's going to work out okay. I also live and die by just throwing a tree stand up on somewhere that I can get tall enough in a tree, and knowing I can shoot 80 yards in any direction, I can cover quite a bit of country and let one rip.
And you probably can also see like their movement and like, okay, all right, they're moving over here, then you can obviously move and adjust in those types of areas where you can see a little ways.
Yep, I've climbed down out of the tree stand a lot of times to go chase after whitetail, which
That's awesome.
you only get really one chance for that in an afternoon, so it has to be a buck you really want. But
Yeah.
and it doesn't work out very much.
I was going to say, with that many eyes that could potentially be in the area,
there's
that makes
deer
it
bedded
difficult.
down everywhere if you don't see. The horses, a lot of times, or cows will run to you if they see you out there because they think you have food of some sorts. So it's often exercise in futility, but it's panned out once or twice, so it keeps me coming back for more.
Do you find that a lot of the landowners and stuff will give permission for whitetails, like, over anything else, like to hunt? Like, if someone were to knock on doors or do anything like that, like, they think of whitetails as like rats?
A lot of the ranchers and landowners really do think that. They do a lot of damage to crops. They do a lot of damage to the river bottom area. Having said that, there's been it really just takes one bad apple to ruin the bushel for everyone else. Mm-hmm. And there seems to be that problem as well. If a rancher or a landowner has a problem with one person, they usually shut it down right there and they don't want to do it anymore. Whether it was someone not practicing good safe practices or letting their buddies on also, or coming out at night, or just not treating the land or that owner with respect.
Okay.
So that usually becomes a problem, and trying to overcome that is one of the harder things, and talking to people, building a relationship, letting them know that if nothing else, they're getting a text every day, the day before you come out there to go hunt, so that it's still their property. They can tell me no whenever they want. I would just like to ask if I can get permission, please, today.
Gotcha. Is there many public opportunities in some of those areas that have that type of ag and river bottom country in Wyoming? Or okay, not talking about it.
Might be.
So one of the other things I think, because Wyoming is basically a small town with long roads, I think we say that a lot. It's much easier for a resident all the permissions I have came over a conversation at a bar with a friend of mine that after 3 or 4 long conversations, the invite came around to being able to go hunt. And so you have that piece where they're happy to let me on, maybe to bring my kid who's going to have a first hunting experience. They're a little bit more open to that than knocking on doors. There's not, I've been out in Kansas where you knock on a door and they let you go hunt a field for geese, but if you ever asked it for deer, they'd be like, no, we have this leased out, which had never been a thing until a few years ago. And now I know up around the Devil's Tower area, places we used to be able to knock on the door and go turkey hunting has now all been leased out to outfitters, and it's been kind of locked down. And so some of that, more Midwest mentality of, paying for exclusive hunting rights on some land is becoming a little bit more of a thing in Wyoming, which, good for the ranchers being able to make money in non-traditional ways, but
yeah,
Mm.
it does lock off the access a little bit to people who are trying to get out there and grind it.
Do you do much turkey or not turkey hunting, whitetail hunting in Wyoming? I know you've been getting into it, like coming east in Kansas and everything, but
Mostly incidental. We have a little bit of whitetail around us on the west side of the state. There's a couple of state sections where you can get on, and we actually, a group of us were asked to hunt a small neighborhood during bow season to try and get rid of some of the deer that were destroying gardens and eating apples and stuff. And unfortunately, in that neighborhood, there was one very anti-hunting group that complained to the HOA and got it shut down, even though we were on private property that had permissions. And so, there's some access to some decent animals, nothing like you guys get out here. One of the things Tony mentioned earlier with the heavy population on the east side, to me, they all look like greyhounds out there. They're these little tiny gray deer. I don't
Such
think
tiny bodies.
they wouldn't dress out like any of your big mountain bucks
Really?
out here. And there's just so many of them. I think that's part of the thing.
yeah.
I'm sure if we, got some of the big ones down on the ground, some of the ones that you don't see because they're more wily, they might compete. But
Yeah.
it's almost, I wouldn't say a different species, but you know how things are from area to area. The population drives the body size down.
Yeah, whitetails are such a weird animal. Like, they're so different everywhere you go. Like, they're the same species, but they all have, like, kind of just their different quirks to them. And I never really noticed the body size. 'Cause I feel like some of the deer you killed had bigger racks, and I like focused on that and didn't look past.
Focus on the big racks too, usually.
Well, I usually find myself, I look at whitetail killed in East Coast or Texas, Southeast U.S., things like that. And a lot of times I look at them and I think, like, man, that's a giant deer. And then I have to remind myself, like, no, Hannah, like, I've killed a Georgia whitetail before. That was a tiny body. Like, put that frame in perspective, a rack on that deer is okay. On a whitetail in Wyoming, it might look a little different.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. What would you think, like, say a whitetail live weight be in like a mature buck in Wyoming?
Whitetails that I've shot before, so a mature deer, at least where I go hunting, what we would call a mature deer and a very large deer, be 140 inches. Most of our deer cap out genetically in that 130 to 145. That just seems to be the ceiling. And we've shot some that have dressed out around that live weight in that 210 to 225.
Okay,
those are the bigger ones.
Those are the decent
there's also a lot of yearlings running around that are like 60 pounds. So there's a little bit on both sides. And to kind of follow up what you said before, there is public land in Wyoming that you can find, that river bottom that is accessible, that you can go hunting on. And like Cade said, their outfitters really did a good job about 5 years ago of, I guess, foreseeing what was happening or going on, and talking to those ranchers and people who did have a bad problem once, and tell them, like, hey, I can take this over, assume the responsibility, and pay you for your time just to use your land. And when you propose that to a landowner, knowing that they really don't have anything to lose in the situation anymore, it's pretty easy for them to say yes.
Yeah. You can't blame them at that point, for any of that. And yeah, I guess our a good sized buck in our area is 210 pounds, something probably about the same. But like there's some that will get live weight of 250, 260, a little bit bigger type deer. But yeah, that makes sense. Hannah, do you hunt much whitetails where you're at?
I do. So where I live, I'm right on a creek bottom. And I'm in a pretty unique area where I've got creek bottom right in front of my house, some hills and draws behind my house. So I get a solid whitetail population moving the creek bottom on my front yard, and a solid mule deer population moving the hills behind my house.
Okay.
And they intermingle and stuff. You'll drive by a group of deer, and it's going to be whitetail and mule deer together. And sometimes they're hanging out together, sometimes they're separate, but I do hunt that area kind of right around where I live because there's a pretty solid whitetail population typically on those creek bottoms.
Okay, that makes sense. And so, Hannah, let's before we go any further, give a little background on yourself, because I feel like I don't know the whole background on you. I've heard that you kind of came from Alaska and all this other stuff.
So I was born in Georgia. First half of my childhood in Georgia, second half in Alaska.
Okay.
Grew up shooting bows, guns, everything, all sorts of shooting sports, competitive shooting, but never actually hunted. I moved out of Alaska and went to Montana for college. And when I was in college, kind of like an early adult onset hunter, around 20 or so years old.
Okay.
I had a friend, a coworker's husband, took me hunting because I was like, I want to try hunting. Went hunting for my first time, shot my first animal there in Montana. Moved to California for grad school for a couple years. Hated that. Got out of California, back to Wyoming, to the Rocky Mountain region, and then picked up hunting again. And I've kind of started bow hunting in Wyoming and just kind of grown in hunting ever since. I've been in Wyoming about 5 or 6 years now.
Okay. And then you also shoot competitive archery, right?
I do. So I shoot competitive archery. I'm not going to say I'm good at it. It ebbs and flows depending on how much I'm practicing.
Yeah.
It's hard to find as much time to practice in Wyoming as it was when I lived in San Diego. That's where I got into competitive archery. San Diego, it's 70 year round. You can shoot outdoors year round. It's beautiful weather. Wyoming, when it's blowing 70 degrees or 70 miles an hour, as opposed to being 70 degrees outside, a little bit harder to shoot.
Probably pretty accurate at that point.
At that point, I'm like, I don't even want to try. It's so hard. But there's some good indoor ranges and stuff that you can still shoot at in Cheyenne. So
yeah. What's your favorite species to hunt?
Oh man. Probably I'm partial to mule deer, I think.
Are you?
I enjoy mule deer hunting. A mule deer was the first animal. No, antelope was the first animal I ever shot with a bow. But mule deer hunting, I've done a variety of mule deer. I mean, Wyoming, you get the opportunity to hunt desert mule deer, high altitude desert. You get the opportunity to hunt high altitude, like mountain, alpine type hunts. So there's a pretty wide variety of mule deer hunting you can do. And I think that's probably one of my more favorite hunts every year.
Okay. Yeah, it's still my nemesis, I guess. I haven't killed a mule deer yet. Last year was the first year like I had a tag in my pocket and tried to go after him. It just didn't work out. So as anyone who's listened to it know, getting altitude set me back a little bit. Apparently PA boy didn't breathe too well at those high elevations, but yeah, that's it. Mule deer kind of have like this weird spot, and that I want to continue to hunt them some more.
I live up at, I think my house is right about 7,000 feet. So I've got a little bit of an advantage there. Living at 7,000 makes it a little bit easier to climb up to that 10, 11,000 mark in the mountains and not feel like you're dying.
Yeah. And I never had issues with altitude in the past. I ended up having some underlying issues. I ended up finding out I had mono and a sinus infection going into it, so it didn't help with. I didn't know that at the time, but then afterwards the doctor's like, yeah, that didn't help your breathing. Which makes me feel better about going back, in the future at it, because I've hunted at those elevations before. But yeah, that's interesting. So do you, when you say you shoot like competitive archery, what does that look like? Do you like go to certain? I know Cade's pretending to draw back a bow. I know it means shooting a bow, but
Just checking.
what does that look like? Do you like travel around the country for it? Is it more local type events? Like what do you do for that?
Yeah, so I started out local. I started out in San Diego, shooting local. Had some people there that I met at the range and were like, you should try doing some local tournaments. And then they invited me to drive with them to Northern California to do a big national tournament, Redding. That was kind of my big step into national tournament archery. And there's different kinds of tournaments. You can do 3D tournaments, field archery tournaments, which are like a paper field archery. There's indoor paper. There's a number of different styles of shooting. I am 100% partial to field archery, like that outdoor paper field archery. 3D archery after that, paper archery indoors, my least favorite. I think that's almost everyone's least favorite unless they're a little bit insane. But really, tournament archery, I shot tournament archery before I started bow hunting. And I think that helped me a little bit, and that tournament archery really helps you perfect your form. I mean, you learn about tuning a bow, you learn about your form, you learn about every tiny little tweak you can make to your posture, to your bow, to your equipment to make your shot more accurate, more consistently. At the same time, I struggled with a lot because tournament archery, you walk up to the line to make a shot, and you look down, you look at your feet, your stance, your posture. What's your hand position on your grip? You draw back slow and kind of take a breath and settle into the shot, and then you shoot. And my very first archery hunt, which was for antelope, turns out you can't take 20 seconds to set up your shot and then actually get a chance at an antelope. So it took a little bit for me to transition to that hunting archery where you can't take 20 to 30 seconds to make sure the shot's perfect. You've got to do it on the fly, and it's got to be a quick process. And I still struggle with that.
I can imagine, but I have to think that by you shooting in front of people and under pressure, that helps you in a hunting scenario when you're kind of in a high stress environment.
I think in a way it does. It gives you a little bit more practice in that high stress environment, shooting on a line. I take my time in tournaments, and it's not uncommon that I'm the last person on the line, and I'm watching the clock tick down. I know that there's dozens or almost 100 shooters behind me watching me as the sole shooter on the line. And you try and block that out. I think it's a different type of pressure, knowing that it's people watching you. Critiquing you is different than an animal pressure where they don't care what my form looks like. They don't know I'm at full draw, but it helps in a way.
I was going to say, cause like, I think so last year I went to, an elk shape camp, and they made us like all stand in front of like 30 other people and shoot at a target covered with a steel ring around it and just the vitals open, and people just like watching over you. And I felt like I had that kind of that rush, like you had a big deer in front of you or whatever it might be, and it made it difficult, kind of slightly blacked out a little bit, and but it's, I don't know, I just feel like that would definitely help out from that side of things. But I could see where it could be difficult from making sure everything's perfect in there, and then transitioning to hunting where you got to make the best of your opportunities, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so, Cade.
Yes.
When I wanted to ask you a little bit about out in Wyoming, you were telling us about a new building from the Maven side of things. Is that a public thing at this point?
Yep. Yeah, it's public. We're actually breaking. The contractor will be on site February 14th, so probably after this podcast or before this podcast. By the time this airs, this will all be going on. So February 14th, 2022, the contractors will be on site and get started on the project. And we're having an official groundbreaking with some people on the 16th of February. So yeah, it's rolling. It's public knowledge. It's going through a public process where we have a program in the state where we're able to borrow money from the business council to do the project so that we don't have to expend capital. It's not a grant, so everyone thinks that we're getting this big chunk of money, but we do have to pay it all back to the state over a period of time, but it just lessens the burden so that we can continue to grow our business. But right now we're in 5,000 square feet. We have 15 people in there, about to have a 16th, and we've literally had to wall in the hallway and make it into Mike's office. We tore down a closet and made it an office. Our beloved break room has 2 people in it now, and we had to move the beer fridge into the conference room, which was, major sacrifices are being made. So the new facility, we've had a couple of floor redesigns, so I don't know the exact square foot offhand, but it's right around 23,000 square feet. So we're going to more than 4 times in size.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of dedicated spaces in there. We're building some, not true clean rooms in that sense, but clean rooms where we'll be able to onboard a lot of our repair pretty immediately. We're getting 2 people fully trained in repair, and then we're going to add hopefully some light assembly long term. We are doing some light assembly of rifle scopes right now, and we want to continue that along with more of our product line. So theoretically, it's supposed to be done by the end of 2022, but it is a government project, and I've never known one of those to come in time or under budget. So we're expecting, probably early 23 move in, but it should be a game changer for us because it will give us the ability to have more people, do more services internally, carry more inventory. Right now, in addition to our building, we have 3 Connex containers in the parking lot, just holding stuff that can be outside, and it's tight to be able to grow right now. So it'll be a big deal for us, and we hope to be, kind of a cornerstone employer of Lander. All of us are really passionate about the community, the 3 of us that started Maven, and so we want to continue to be a long-term piece of the community there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's got to be great for the community to bring some of those jobs in and being able to do some of that assembly and everything in-house and be able to do that. And who knows, maybe I'll come out and work for you. You keep telling me I need to move out there.
I keep telling you to move out. Honestly, in a town of 7,000 people, a private employer of 15, 16 people is a force. This will be, we figured it out once, but things are always changing. But I think it'll be the 3rd largest privately owned building in the community. Okay. Minus schools and hospitals type stuff. There's not that many 20,000 plus square foot facilities. So, and it's right at the, coming into town, our architect and then our designer, Brendan, have done a great job of making it look like a cornerstone piece of the community. So when you come in, it's a great gateway, and we're excited for what it can mean for us, but we're also, really excited for being part of the community for long term.
Yeah, and then I this is just what I heard, but I heard 14,000 square feet of it's actually the new beer room.
That's an estimate. We're still drawing up some numbers, but we take our employee relaxation seriously. So we want to make sure that there's an appropriate venue for that relaxation.
I'm all for that and keeping everybody happy and hydrated. I mean, I think that's an important piece of it.
And I think we found a way, if we stack the boxes just right for protection, we'll also have a 50-yard indoor archery range. So
really,
yep. Our original plan actually called for a testing lane for optics and stuff that we could have done there, but when we had to do some, as you might be aware, construction costs have increased dramatically.
Yes.
So when we put our project in January of 21, and then the bids came in July of 21, there was a 35% price increase from the estimation to the actual bids.
Holy cow.
So many things got cut, including the 50-yard indoor archery range, but I think we'll still be able to find a place to fling an arrow without sticking it in someone.
I mean, just like that 14,000 feet or whatever, any of that could really be a beer drinking area. Truly, any of it could also be an archery shooting area, right? It's just how you play it.
It could be.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting to see that grow and see the community be able to I guess be impacted from having that, internally. And I'm excited you invited me out to the grand opening ceremony whenever that is. So
you bet.
That'll be cool.
Probably somewhere around the end of Q1 23 we should be moved in, done with getting sick at Harrisburg.
And the rest of the shows.
Next version. And then get everything moved in, settled in, and then have a good party, which is one of the things we like to do.
Yeah, no, it's always a good time hanging out with you guys. So I'm sure it'll be a good time. That's for sure. And so do you think that, with that being said, what do you see from Maven in the future, if you're able to talk about that, just continuing to grow kind of what you're already building in those foundations, or what are you seeing from that?
Yeah. So for us, we still see that there's opportunities within what we're already doing. Our binocular line has filled out nicely. We launched the revised B1 last year, and then with it we launched the B6, which gave us that 50 millimeter choices in the premium line. We launched the C4, which gave us the 56 millimeters in the midline. We got into our rangefinders last year. I don't think it's super secret at this point because we printed it in our catalog before we were ready, but there's a C-Series rangefinder coming out this spring. That'll be...
I'm just finding out about this right now. Apparently, I didn't read the catalog.
Yeah, apparently...
Oh, I've been pre-selling this at the show all week.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a C-Series rangefinder due out probably in April. It'll be about half the published distance that the RF1 is, but probably about half the published price as the RF1 as well.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, I think if you just look at our line, we have some obvious gaps, and some of those are continuing to fill out things within the rangefinder category, with ballistics and some such items. And then our really big gaps remain in the rifle scopes. We just launched our C-Series rifle scopes at the beginning of January, and they've taken off. We're doing really well there. And then we have our 5 models of the RS series, but that's a drop in the bucket of what's a potential for rifle scopes.
Yeah.
We could have 50 SKUs and still have gaps in rifle scopes. It's really where everyone that comes up wants a very, very, very specific thing that we don't currently make. And
the most difficult customer so far this week at the Harrisburg show has been people who come up and want to talk about rifle scopes, because everybody wants a certain exact thing and they want it to be this way. And if it's a wire reticle, then they don't want it. And if it's a laser reticle or a mesh reticle, they don't want it. And if it's a second focal plane, then they don't want it. But if it's a first focal plane, they don't want it.
Yeah.
And it is...
Yeah, people come up and ask for like these specs. Do you have it?
Yeah.
And it's always something that they've had before, and that's like, this is what my old scope was, and so why don't you make one that's exactly the same thing?
Yeah. And rifle scopes are probably the biggest area of misunderstood knowledge. Like, people come in with this is how my rifle scope behaves. It's like, no, mathematically it can't. Like, no, I'm telling you, this is what it is. I mean, I had a very short but furious argument with a guy today about he absolutely insisted that Japan was in Europe. And so when I said we use Japanese glass, not European glass, he goes, no, if you're using Japan, you're using European because Japan's in Europe. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm not going to pull up the map and show, like, okay, like I'm just not going to argue with you because there's no value in it. But there is very passionate, if slightly misinformed. But honestly, most of the people that come up, like Hannah was saying earlier about coming up with the same question over and over, really, and the reason we do all these shows, I call it, we're here to show and tell, because people are really, most of the time, looking to be informed. There's probably a nice 5% demographic that wants to come and they're looking for justification on what they already own and why it's better. Like, they're just trying to get you to say that, no, you know what, your $100 Walmart pair is the bee's knees. You're right, sir. But honestly, most of the time, they're just looking for an entrance, some icebreaker to really learn more.
Yeah.
And it's easy for us to get jaded after days and days of these conversations and start getting a little frustrated. But you always have to step back and go, okay, why are they asking that question? They're asking that question because they don't know. They just want to be educated, and they might ask it in a weird way or in a, sometimes slightly aggressive manner. But as you know, Beau, I am the epitome of patience and and always willing to have a good conversation.
Sometimes when questions get asked, I kind of cringe because I don't know what's going to come out of Cade's mouth.
Oh, man.
I do a pretty good job of reading my audience.
No, you do.
I do like to mess with people in the booth, but most of the time they know it's coming.
Yeah, when someone asked today about do you have any rifle scopes in the stainless option? And you're like, no. And they're like, well, why don't you? And you go, because it looks stupid. I was laughing so hard.
There reaches a certain point in the day where you're like, you know what? It's for everyone's best interest that I step away for a little bit. Just take a short break because the next person that comes up and asks this question, I might get a little snippy.
But then I did tell him that I was just kidding, and we talked about why, and he was all about it. But it was just Sometimes you got to break the tension because it is a long day
and make it kind of fun. At the same
I can only
time.
pick on Beau so much. I've got to spread it out a bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on today. I'd say.
You do have a fairly adamant following that is very excited to meet you in person.
The Beau Boys.
The Beau Boys.
The Rainbows.
I don't even know what to say to that.
I don't know why you're looking at me. I thought I was very nice.
It's unfortunate that you didn't announce ahead of time the photo and autograph opportunity you had today at the booth.
Yeah, I mean, people could have come in
People
and got their hat signed.
Get your picture taken with the...
Oh my God, it's Beau Martonik.
Rambo Martonic.
We did get some Rambo moves today though with those rifle scopes when you were demonstrating some of the different postures,
doing some sneak and peek
shooting
around
postures and stuff.
Yeah.
I appreciated that.
To get the full view out of those rifle scopes, you got to get into mission. Like,
you got to get
full
tactical.
Rambo.
You got to get tactical.
Maybe that's what our sales pitch is missing. We don't have enough live action going on with.
No, there's
barrel rolls and stuff.
The marketing team and really get involved with more tactical type moves and photo ops.
I
I
learned
think
a
it's
lot.
a whole.
It's a gap.
Yeah,
I mean,
watching you, I learned a lot. I'm going to use some of those moves this next. Probably elk hunting, I'm thinking, is where they're going to be most efficiently put to use.
yeah, I mean, it's all about the first couple steps that you take when you have the gun and the scope attached to it, obviously in hand, and how you get into position and get
The shoulder mount while slowly sweeping back the mud flap was really.
the mud flap is what they call my mullet currently. The mud flap.
I mean, like all that preseason scouting work and the studying the elk herd and the getting into position and finding them, calling them in. None of that really matters. It's those few steps as you bring the rifle to the shoulder, or as you demonstrated, center chest is also an option.
Center chest is a really good opportunity to have good form. And like, think about it. If you put your gun on your shoulders, you're offset, and the kick just blows your arm back. You put it directly on your sternum, you're gonna take that impact.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, like a champ.
Like a champ.
Why use one eye to look through the scope when you could use both eyes and truly center that sight?
Yeah, that's it. Honestly, you're not even supposed to look through the scope. You look down each side of it.
It's an alignment, really.
Yeah.
We have some fun.
Yeah, we do. You have to. You got to have fun with it. And I think our time at the booth, we kind of create these things that to anybody on the outside is probably like, oh, that's pretty dumb, but it's fun. It's fun to us. I'll say that.
Show life is something else. I mean, this is technically it's my 5th show already this calendar year. So went to Dallas Safari Club, came home. I was
With
supposed to be
COVID
home
there,
for a
right?
week, got COVID on the way home. So walked in the door, was quarantined for the 5 days. The day I get out of quarantine, I fly to Vegas, do SHOT Show, you just walk it for a couple of days, but I was not in top form. And then immediately rolled over Safari Club International, was home for 5 days. I guess I was home 8 days. Sorry, my fault. 8 days. Then I went to the Las Vegas shoot for professional archery. Was there last week, and then went directly from there to Harrisburg. And I'm here, and then I get a drive home with Alan for 2 days after this. Then I'll be home for 8 days.
Okay.
Then I head to Germany for 9 days. So
you're at 2 for 5 of your shows this year for bringing home a disease or infestation.
yes,
What are you going to get in Germany? What's on the docket?
the sky's the limit.
Yeah, COVID, bed bugs. It's just like I don't know.
Flurona over there, I think. Is moving around.
There's something weird going on, but it is. I mean, I guess it is very critical for a company like Maven that is direct to consumer, and you're not in stores, so you have to educate people and be able to get the hands on the product for selling online. It's hard for someone to be like, oh, I'm gonna spend $1,000 on this pair of optics without seeing it. So this gives the opportunity for the people that do want to see it to be able to get their hands on it.
Absolutely, and that's why we do shows. I mean, we know that historically, wherever we do shows, not only at the event where we've done very well here, I can't complain. We've done very well with our sales, but over the course of the next year, we'll see Pennsylvania sales roll in, and we've got about half the people that come by the booth and they've already bought a B3 or a C1 and they're looking at what they need next, and half the people come by the booth and go, I ain't never heard of y'all. How new are you? Like, well, I've been in this booth location for 6 years. Have you ever come to the show? Yes. Ain't never heard of y'all. Well, all right. Well, now you have. Let's talk about it. We walk them through. And a surprising source, we've spent a lot of investigative studies over the last couple of nights, but the Pennsylvania Dutch, their various communities here in Pennsylvania are large customers at these shows. They're not online. They're not going to find us on the website, but their cousin, uncle, brother, someone in their community has bought from us in the past, and they've heard about them, and they come in. And we've sold a fair amount to different members of those communities that continue to be good customers. So we would never do that if we relied solely online. And while I know that your podcast is gaining reach, I'm not sure it's really deep in those communities either. So it's good to be in person.
Yeah. No, that's yeah, I think that's a very fair point, and there's a lot of even of the older generation that comes in that hasn't seen it, because being online or doing anything, coming across it, and they're not on social media and all these different things to see the marketing or whatever that goes through that. So being able to get their hands on it and look through it, it's pretty cool to watch somebody pull up either the rifle scope or any of the optics for the first time and kind of see their impressions.
Oh,
by
absolutely. I mean, I've got 2 customers in mind. I talk about, getting sick of the same question over and over. But so far in the show, I had one woman a couple days ago who pulled up a pair of binos and was just blown away. Not even by the quality or anything about the glass, but she'd never even really looked through a pair of binos and was just blown away by what she could see.
Yeah.
And just her face and her expression as she was like, oh my gosh, I can see everything. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then today, same thing. I had a guy that I was talking to throw up a pair of B series binos, the kind of highest quality optics put out there by Maven, and just puts them up to his eyes, and you could just watch like this big old grin forming on his face, and you just knew like whatever he was seeing through those binos was better than what he had seen before through the previous pair he owned.
Yeah.
Just this big old smile, and then wow.
I loved the one guy that came up today, and he picks up the pair of optics. He's like, wow, I guess I should have shopped around before I bought this pair.
Yeah. he bought a pair at another booth and just off on a whim, and then came to our booth and was like, well, I screwed up.
Yeah.
Should have bought these.
Yeah, that's funny.
And we spend an amazing amount of time in our booth educating people who probably are not our customer. But, our rule of thumb, first of all, is never prejudge, because, in Wyoming, you'll meet half a dozen millionaires with cow shit on their boots before you make it to the bank. You can't judge a book by its cover. Still have not sold to anybody wearing only bib overalls and no shirt. But, I think that potential's out there at some point. But we do spend a lot of time just educating people on how to operate binos, how to set the diopter, how to focus, how to change the eye relief so that they don't get that vignetting. And every once in a while you'll get that guy that comes in and telling his buddy, oh yeah, this is how you change the field of view, and they'll twist out the eye cups. And you go, no, that's, that actually is just eye relief. No, buddy, I know what's up. This is how you change field of view. Okay. Not going to get into an argument, but most of the time people are...
Yeah, just want...
our number one question, I think you and I talked about it on Optics 101, the number one thing that people don't understand, and I've had guides who do it for a living, when I start explaining the numbers, they're like, I had no idea that's what 10 by 42 meant. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was a thing. I didn't realize that there was actually math behind those numbers, and... they'll come in and hold up one of our small 8x30s and go, I like it this size. But I was told I need a 10 by 50. Can I get a 10 by 50 in this size? And like, no, 50 millimeters is the size of that lens. That's what, really? I just thought I was told I need a 10 by 50. I didn't know I couldn't get it in a compact pair. And
yeah.
So education's a big piece of it. And a lot of times, even if they didn't come to buy, they become customers, or they come back in 2 years and go, I wasn't ready to buy then, but you guys spent so much time with me, helped me understand. I don't know how many times I saw Honey and Tana run out to the parking lot with their binocular, with a spotting scope or binoculars to let someone look outside, because they're like, I can't tell anything in here. And they're like, great, let's walk outside and let's do a comparison. And
yeah, no, that's so true. And I've learned a lot, like, since with working with you guys over the last 5 or 6 years at this event, and being able to, everyone that comes through, including myself, until I got to learn it, I just thought 10 by 42s, that's what you got. That's just like, that was just standard. And they're like, oh, okay. Sometimes it's better to have a lower magnification. And that doesn't mean that it's a lower quality optic, because it has that, allows more light in. There's all these different things that come through. I think that education standpoint is super important. And I like that that's kind of like the basis of it. There's not really a time when it's just like a hard sell and we're better than anybody else. It's just like, okay, here's the facts that comes with it, and based on that, you can make your own buying decision off of those different things.
Yeah, there's no advantage to us angering someone and having them walk away and say, man, those guys are jerks. It's like, I'd rather you walk away without a sale, but think about long term. You know what? They informed me. It was a good company. I learned some stuff, because they might tell their buddy who is looking for a pair, like, hey, you know, I already bought, but you guys should give Maven a look. And I don't know how many people have come by the booth this week and just said, my buddy said, I told him I was looking for binos, and he said I had to check out Maven here at the show.
Yeah.
So even if I tell them their scope looks stupid, they still think they still come back.
Yeah, it word of mouth has got to be, no matter what business you're in, probably the most valuable part of it.
And you can have 100 people say something good and one person says something bad, and you've lost more than you've gained.
Yeah.
For the most part, people who go to shows, companies that go to shows, like you were saying, yeah, ideally companies are there at shows to sell a product, but they're also just chatting with people, spreading the word about the company, informing people about the product. And I mean, I wandered around. Everyone's wandered around. I was looking for a holster today. I know nothing about holsters. And the couple of companies I went to they tried to sell me a product, told me about prices and their warranty and all that, but also just informed me. And so going to these shows and talking to different companies, you can learn a lot about the different gear out there and, different hunting experiences and things like that just by talking to them.
Yeah.
They want to teach you because it leaves a good impression.
Yeah, definitely. So I do have a question. I feel like I remember the first time that I met Tony here, Cade, you had said that that Tony was like one of the first official Maven pro staffers. How did you guys meet? Tony hates that word, so that's why I'm throwing it in there. I'm
sure I'm misremembering it because I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. But so Tony, I can't even remember how you heard about us, Tony. I don't know if it was from the KUIU press release when we first worked with Jason Hairston, or if you were friends with Latigo. Do you remember how you first heard about us?
I had posted on my Facebook page at the time that I was looking for a new set of binoculars. If any of my buddies knew of a good brand, to go ahead and drop their name. And one of the guys I went to middle school with in Minnesota said, I just took these pair of Mavens to Africa the other year. You should check them out.
So, I mean, a completely sideways connection. And he lives over on the east side of the state, but I think your parents lived down in Utah or something at the time, and you were driving through Lander for something. I can't remember what it was for, work or something.
Casper to Pinedale.
So he called and asked to come by, and our place that we had at that time was not the luxury digs we're in now. We were in a 1,200 square foot. The office was about this size of this kitchen, and this kitchen is 10 by 14, and me and Mike shared that. Brendan worked from home, and the rest of the warehouse at the time was wide open, just a concrete floor and cinder block building, and that's where we did everything out of. Tony cruised in, looked through everything, and he was doing some general archery and really, hunting hard like he still does, getting out there and getting in the woods. And he's like, you guys have a pro staff? I'm like, no. And we had intentionally talked about, we didn't want to do this big kind of pro staff thing where everyone's like, I'm on Maven's pro staff. And he's like, well, you do now. I'm on it. Like, well, we don't really have a program. He says, I don't care. I'm on it.
Basically, yeah. I was like, all right, well, I can either hang out here till you say yes, or we can just get this going one way or another. And since then they've put together a staff of actually talented people, and so I'm always waiting for my phone call to be like, hey, we're just one spot short, and so your 7 Instagram followers don't exactly carry a lot of weight anymore.
So what's funny is we have this friend who came to us in a very similar way, Nathan Lopez out in California, and he wanted to know what he could do to help support Maven and help us grow. And at one time he was a competitive archer on the West Coast, and he's like, I have an idea. He kept asking about this pro staff. I'm like, we're not doing one. We have one person, and it's already too big. And he's like, well,
they didn't want it. But
we have one, and we don't even want him.
We had one, and he was just a stray dog we took in. We felt bad for him. So.
And he's like, have you broke into the archery side yet? Like, none of us knew anything about competitive archery. he said, well, I've got my eye on a couple of people. I think if we put together a small pro staff of competitive archers, we could grow in that area. A lot of other brands were abandoning it, and he saw some opportunity. So he signed. So we're like, all right, you have like 4 people this year and maybe 4 people next year. It was very limited at the time. We were a very small organization, and so he started kind of accumulating a list of mostly people that kind of he knew on the West Coast to start. And we ended up with some really good shooters to start. And then, so we have a good group of California West Coast shooters, Alan Burnetta and Brandon Williamson. And then from there, we got a little bit of recognition from some of the, and I never know how to quite say this. I think everybody understands. There's a couple of top tier archers. Like if you look at any of the big competitions every week, there's about 30 that one of them is going to be on the podium every week. One of that group. Not every week, not every podium, but a couple of them reached out to us and said, hey, we see what you're doing for archery. We see what you're doing in the community. All the other companies are kind of leaving us behind. We'd love to do something with you. What can we do? So the first of those is a guy named Jesse Broadwater out of Florida. If anyone's at all familiar with any level of competition archery, you know who Jesse Broadwater is. He's shot in the world. He doesn't shoot recurve, so he hasn't been to the Olympics, but about every other national format that you can think of, he's taken either first or second at some point in the last 15 years. Because of that connection, he works close with another gal who's very similar, Paige Pierce, who is first, second, or third in just about every tournament in the world every weekend. And the two of them, at that point, I'm like, all right, Nathan, this is getting kind of big. What do we do? He goes, well, what's this guy Tony doing on the roster? I'm like, Tony stays. You'll meet him one day. Tony's OG. He stays on. And then they went hunting together, and he's like, oh, yeah, Tony stays.
Yeah, I met up with Nathan and 2 of his buddies, and we did an Idaho elk hunt. Had a great 8 days up there and so many laughs, good times. We did get 1 bull stuck, but we didn't ever recover it. So I punched my tag on that one and said thank you guys for all the help trying to recover it, and just went and called for a little bit.
Yeah. That's really funny. Try kicking you off, and
yeah, I don't blame him. I don't blame him.
I'm just kidding.
So Hannah was an ad later on, right around that time.
Okay, so that's okay.
So Hannah,
how the connection.
Yeah, I met Nate Lopez there in Reading at that shoot. Say 4 or 5 years ago or so, and kind of learned about Maven at that shoot, just like here at the show. They had a booth, started talking to them, and talked to Nate a little bit, and got to know more about the Maven products. And
so, if you ever want to have a good time, Beau, so they have they have multiple different classes.
I'm always in for a good time.
So the Reading, the Western Classic Trail Shoot, it's a 3D tournament, and if you talk to the bow nerds, they'll tell you that it's a safari style trail shoot versus you shoot dots on a target, but it's like, I don't know.
Virgin talk. No one understands it.
It's basically one of the most fun shoots.
Foam animals.
But how many total targets do you shoot over 3 days?
Something for the virgins.
So it's
little
70
Legolas
targets.
guys running around.
Yeah. So it's 70 targets over 3 days.
Okay.
And it's all hiking, like you shoot one, pull your arrow, go to the next.
Yeah.
Everything from 4 yards to 100 and plus yards.
Just over 100 yards for the maximum target distance. Yeah.
And there's a hunter class, so you can show up with your hunting rigged bow and compete just in that class. So you could enter for the big money and compete against Brady Ellison and Jesse Broadwater and that crew. But you can do any crew, and I think they're limiting this year to 3,000 archers.
Holy cow.
So it's gotten to be such a big shoot. So this is the shoot that we're talking about that got me into tournament archery. My friends in San Diego, who I'd run into at the local archery range, were like, hey, come to this shoot with us. Like, we're driving up. It's like an 8-hour drive from San Diego, but drive up with us, spend the weekend up there, have fun. And I went and did it. It is now such a popular shoot. And some of it's been limitations on registration size in recent years due to COVID and stuff, but it sells out within I want to say a day of them opening registration. I mean, it opens and you have to register. It's full. There's
This
a
is
wait
one of
list.
those cool events that started as a local archery club at their club putting on this tournament that's grown to such a thing that, I mean, I think even during COVID last year when they held it, there were something like 18 countries represented, and
Wow.
it's now a National Field Archery Association qualifying event for their World Series. I mean, it is one of the most fun events, and big shock, we rent a house there for the duration and have a barbecue, do a little flip
But
flop
they
out
saved
there.
the bed bugs for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's our treat.
this is my second time at a Maven house, first time with Maven bed bugs. So
Not even the bed bugs want to go to California.
That's funny.
But yeah, if you ever wanted to do like just an awesome, imagine a total archery challenge where they keep score.
Yeah. I don't like that because that'll expose me. Oh man. Well, I think we're gonna wrap this one up here. So what do you so kind of want to go around the table here, if you will, and where can people find a little bit more from you, Tony, or if you want people to check you out. If not, you can defer. You're shaking your head at me.
dry.
Yeah, if you can probably
_fly
run into me
_wild.
somewhere out there, but that's going to be it.
He's frequently featured on Hunting Douche.
Most of those seem to be written with almost me in mind. Yeah. But no, you can find me on Facebook, Tony Ostheimer. You can find me on Instagram, DryFlyYO.
There's some underscores.
There's
in there.
I think
all you guys have YO at the end. All you Wyoming people have that at the end of your.
If you were from Wyoming, you'd be proud too.
No. I'm just kidding.
They're just going to go homicide on us.
Hannah, what about you?
Same thing. I'm on Facebook, Hannah Summers, Instagram, Hannah Summers _YO. And I did the _YO because Hannah Summers was taken. Okay. It's a good name. It was taken already.
All right.
Yeah, Facebook, Instagram. You can find me on there.
Cade?
At Maven Built.
At Mavenbuilt, mavenbuilt.com. And all right, cool. Well, thanks guys for coming on. I appreciate it. It's always a good time getting chat with everybody here.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Beau.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Beau Martonik. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.